Today is the day Ole Miss fans are glued to a tiny courthouse in Pittsboro, Mississippi for Trinidad Chambliss' eligibility hearing because a national championship might very well be on the line.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast out there. I'm your host, Stephen Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media with Yahoo Sports and a former staff member at Ole Miss. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Now it's the #1 sports podcast network in America. That is because of fans like you taking in content like this. On today's show, we're going to discuss Ole Miss having 5 players in the NFL Combine, and one name is conspicuously missing. Even the NFL seems to kind of recognize which direction this might be heading. Next, we'll break down exactly what you can realistically expect from the courthouse today. While developments are coming, there's not expected to be a final verdict, as the process could continue for several days. But first, we're going to start with Trinidad Chambliss and his fight for a rightfully earned 6th year of eligibility, a decision that could arrive as soon as today, but we're not expecting it to. If Trinidad Chambliss prevails, the implications for Ole Miss are enormous, with national championship aspirations firmly on the table. All of this and more on today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make the show what it is. Your team every day. All right, so just a quick recap of this situation for people that are tuning into the podcast for the first time. It's always reminded to me by my superiors that people watch an average of 8 podcasts per month. So there's a chance they haven't seen what was going on. So repeating yourself is not just important, it's necessary. So bear with me, those that watch every day. I'm doing this for the people that's just tuning in and just kind of flying over because today is an important day. The day after the Ole Miss-Miami game, the NCAA denied Trinidad Chambliss' waiver for a 6th year of eligibility, denied his waiver for a medical redshirt. They said that it was due to the fact that in 2022, it was a performance-based issue and that Ferris State wasn't cooperating and all of that. If you paid attention during that time, it felt like it was a one-sided thing. And then everybody jumped on that story and popped out. Well, a couple hours later, Trinidad Chambliss' lawyer, Tom Mars, put out a statement that that's not true, that right after it happened, there was the next sentence in the email of that note was the head coach of Ferris State saying that he was severely impacted and missed the year because of basically a medical condition that he couldn't get over. Basically contradicted what the NCAA said immediately. That was Tony Anise, I think, from Ferris State. So Ole Miss appealed, as they rightly would, be taking on exhausting all the steps that they can at the NCAA level. And the NCAA is like, okay, our bad. We got 91 pages of notes, but we're not going to listen to what the doctor said. We're just going to make our own diagnosis of what's going on. We're not going to bring in a medical expert. We're just going to find the words on the page that support our case, and that's going to be it. And they denied the application again. Shortly after that, Tom Mars put it out again, denial of the right to have a medical expert or give any weight to the doctor in question that treated at Trinidad Chambliss violates the own bylaws of the NCAA. So they're like, okay, that's going on. We're going to do a lawsuit in Pittsboro, Mississippi. They filed with the chancery clerk. At that point, the lawsuit was going for February 12th, today's date. And it's important for what's going on because this is the first opportunity to really hear the Trinidad Chambliss portion of the story. All you've heard is the NCAA up until this point and their sycophants, the people that need to put out their talking points because it is imperative that they get access a little bit later on. It's the reason that randomly people that don't do mock drafts all of a sudden have Trinidad Chambliss as the number 3 quarterback in this year's draft. It's weird that happened. It's like, this is the first mock draft you've ever done, and all of a sudden Trinidad Chambliss is there. So whatever there. So Tom Mars, William Liston, and all of Trinidad's team have the opportunity to speak on Trinidad's behalf finally. And this case, make no mistake, if this was in D2, if Trinidad was still at Fair State, they would have rubber stamped this medical red shirt at the staff level. It would not have even reached anywhere close to where we are right now. The information they had for a medical red shirt in 2022 at Fair State was absolutely perfect, and it would have happened instantly. The problem is the fact that Trinidad Chambliss transferred from a D2 institution to a D1 institution, and the standard of record keeping between the two are different. We always talk about bureaucracy being the problem, this being big government at the absolute worst. That is absolutely the case. We talked about it, and we mean it. If Trinidad Chambliss was at Fair State, he would be the Fair State quarterback in 2026 and would have already been decided. Him moving to D2 meant the standard raised up to a level to what you had to have to qualify for a medical redshirt. And it's like this: D2, D1. And they're saying, hey, all of these notes and what's going on, they don't meet the standard for a medical redshirt at D1. It's big government at the absolute worst. It is bureaucracy at the absolute worst. No common sense allowed. So somebody that would be a slam dunk medical waiver at the D2 level is denied at the D1 level because of record keeping. That is what we're dealing with. So what you have is a situation where Trinidad Chambliss missed the 2022 season because of respiratory issues, to the point where if you've ever tried to do anything with breathing problems, it's going to be problematic. It is going to be hard to get on the field in that scenario. You might do what you need to do to be around the team, be a good teammate, but getting on the field and actually making a difference at the college level, that's going to be completely difficult. There's an interview with Trinidad Chambliss where he mentions the fact that he had a medical red shirt in 2022. There is the Detroit News putting out an article when Trinidad Chambliss transferred to Ole Miss, saying he had 2 years of eligibility. You have the announcers of the 2024 national championship game when they gave a timeline of Trinidad Chambliss talking about the medical red shirt in 2022. This wasn't something that was cooked up when he got to Ole Miss. When all of this money was on the line, it was already an established thing several years ago. So the NCAA playing the standard game is at least disingenuous, partially evil. Yeah, I mean, we talk about them being an evil organization acting in bad faith. This is an example of that. This isn't something that was cooked up by Trinidad Chambliss in December. This was something that goes back to 2022 that was his expectation at that point. He was going to get the extra year of eligibility because he likes playing football and he's really good at doing it. This isn't like the Charles Bediako case to where he went pro and came back. That was the problem with his case. It wasn't the fact that he was doing something like applying for a 6th year, which the NCAA is granted for 50 years. This is not like the Joey Aguiar case where he's saying, hey, the JUCOs shouldn't count because it's not really an NCAA thing, and he's going for his 8th year of school. No, this is a medical hardship red shirt denied over bureaucracy and stuff happening with the paperwork and record keeping between D2 and D1. That is the reason that Ole Miss is in a tiny courthouse in Pittsboro, Mississippi, trying to argue their case. That Trinidad Chambliss is fighting for a 6th year of a 6th year of eligibility because of record keeping. at the NCAA level. It's big government at its worst. It really is. And this is the chance for Trinidad to tell his story. And the facts line up on Trinidad's side. It's one of those things where the merits of the case should slant towards Trinidad Chambliss. But anytime you deal with a singular judge and not a jury of the peers, it can be weird. There can be weird rulings from time to time. I understand that. But the facts of this situation leads everybody involved to have supreme confidence of what's going on. Now, what can we expect today? How do we think today plays out? And what can you expect from Pittsboro this morning? We'll talk about all of that next.
I'm Kalia Butler, host of Locked On Women's Basketball, and this is Mazda's Women's Basketball Snapshot, celebrating the work no highlight reel can ever capture. Dawn Staley and South Carolina remain on top of the SEC standings after handing Tennessee their worst defeat in program history with a final score of 93-40. In the 43-point win, South Carolina shot 69% from the field. Tessa Johnson had a perfect shooting night, scoring 24 points, shooting 4 for 4 from the floor, including 2 threes, and made all 4 of her free throws. And UCLA remains undefeated in Big Ten play, topping Michigan 69-66 as Player of the Year contender Lauren Betts put up a double-double, scoring 16 points, collecting 16 rebounds, and adding 5 assists and 3 blocks. These moments are earned off the clock, those long before the lights ever come on. The sweat, the fakes, the doubt, the scrapes, and coming back for more every time. Mazda puts the same drive into every detail. Wins define the moment, putting in the work, that defines you. There's more to a Mazda because there's more to you.
Do us a favor, like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs absolutely nothing, but keeps all of this free. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen of the day, and thank you for making it the #1 sports podcast network in America. That will not be forgotten. You already live your team every single day. Now take it up a level and go ad-free. Join the Everydayer Club today and get Locked On Ole Miss with no interruptions, members-only Discord access, and more, all for just $5 a month or $50 per year. Go to lockedonolemisssupercast.com or check the link down in the show notes to learn more. And also, be sure when you sign up for that to sign up for the Discord server. I know that a lot of people don't use Discord, but it's an interesting way to chat with what's going on. It's kind of the message board in the Locked On universe. If you sign up for the Locked On message board, I will give you access to the Locked On Ole Miss message board, to where we kind of do the group chat thing and learn a little bit of what's going on. So just a heads up about that. Join the Discord when you join as a member, and I will hook you up with private message board access. So the important thing to realize about today is they're not trying to get a temporary restraining order. That's the same day ruling that happens. Like the Charles Bediako thing, he played on a temporary restraining order, not a temporary injunction. The temporary injunction lasts throughout the trial, and I think the standard to meet that is that it would look like you would obviously win the lawsuit if it gets to that point or something like that, something to that point. But the important thing is today is not about a temporary restraining order, which means the judge is not obligated to rule on it today, if that makes sense. The lawyers are going to submit their case. It's going to look like a typical law trial that you see on YouTube from time to time. And at the end of it, they're going to say, court dismissed, and they're going to walk out, and there's not really going to be anything that comes out of it. The judge is going to say, expect a ruling at some point or something in some point, and lawyers are going to be able to mend what they did. Basically, it's going to be like the second Charles Bediako situation. Now, the temporary restraining order was a same-day thing, but when it came down to the injunction, it was about 5 days worth of time. And I would expect that with the first ruling on Thursday, you might hear something maybe on Friday. If it's an open and shut thing, if it makes it to the weekend, it'll probably go to Monday or Tuesday. That is my expectation for today. But we will see, because anytime you deal with a judge, a singular person, it could go either way. There's an unpredictableness of that, and the one person that you have to convince of whatever your argument is always has a little bit of a standard difference between that. Now, in my opinion, the facts of this case is on your side, and Ole Miss has the NCAA boogeyman in Tom Mars fighting for Trinidad Chambliss on his behalf. So we'll see how it looks. But what actually is set up is kind of a perfect storm for Trinidad Chambliss to accomplish what he wants. And that doesn't mean he necessarily will. All the facts, in my opinion, like I said, are on the side of granting the injunction. When you look at it, if Trinidad Chambliss is not the starting quarterback in 2026, I will be absolutely stunned. But it's important that I put the caveat out there that you're trying to convince one person. And it's going to be up to him and his decision with whichever standards and tests are going on to him. Like I said, everybody thinks it's going to move through, but if it doesn't, it's because of that. So we'll see what's going on there. Also, we're going to talk about the NFL draft in the next segment a little bit, but before I get to that point, I do want to drop a couple of nuggets that I have heard about pre-spring practice of the new transfer players working out. And the wide receivers working on the jugs machine, pretty interesting thing. But the leaders in the clubhouse right now for the number one position, we're going to tell you about that in our final segment. Ole Miss is sending 5 players to the NFL Draft Combine. And also there could be a little bit of drama brewing for the number one jersey this fall. We'll tell you who's leading the clubhouse right after this. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax, you can have your taxes done by a trusted local expert start to finish without all of the stressful guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and get the work done and trying to get you every single deduction. You can upload your documents and go about your day and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver and gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. All right, so one thing is interesting, as you know, the NFL draft invitees for Ole Miss, there's 5 players that are going to go. But before we do that, let's actually talk about the team moving forward. And all of the transfers have made it to class. They're going through the February campaign, the fourth quarter drills. They're probably what they're called, honestly, if you go by Pete Golding being a Nick Saban disciple. They're probably doing that. They're working that. All of the people are in place. So everybody's working right now, moving towards the football season in the fall. And the question that gets asked from time to time is who is going to be the number one wide receiver? And by number one, I don't mean top. I mean, who is literally going to wear the number one in 2026? Who is going to be the Deshaun Stribling of this class? And The interesting thing that I'm hearing are two little guys are the leader in the clubhouse for that. The leader coming back off of last season is Deuce Alexander. The rumor is that he wants to switch from 11 to 1 into this 2026 season. And it makes sense. He's kind of the guy coming back, especially with Caden Lee moving off to Missouri. Deshaun Stribling moving in that direction. All of those people that have worn the number 1 that were the leaders of the wide receiver room this year, they've kind of moved on. So who is going to wear the number 1 next year? So Deuce Alexander being the leader in the clubhouse to do that. And Deuce Alexander's acting like he wants to make the switch from 11 to 1. He's competing with Johntay Cook, who is a candidate also to wear the number 1 jersey next year. And it is my understanding that they're trying to do the professional thing of buying that number, essentially. So that is the competition right now. You have the leader in the clubhouse, Deuce Alexander. You have Johntay Cook, who wants to wear that number as well. Now, Johntay Cook could easily slide into the number 2 as well. You have Caleb Cunningham as the number 3. You have Caleb Odom as the number 4. You have Kewan as the number 5. So number 1 and number 2 are open season for both of those players potentially. That is something to monitor for Ole Miss as it moves forward into spring practice and into fall camp. If no numbers changes happen before spring practice, you obviously are going to have those numbers change right before the season. We talked about Antonio Kite last season during fall camp. He was like number 33, changed that to number 8 after winning the number 1 cornerback position. I think this might be a similar type situation. The player that gets into the offense, that makes the plays, that are the most reliable. Johntay Cook and Deuce Alexander, I was told, have 2 of the better sets of hands on the team. So that is the 2 receivers to pay attention to in spring practice for the number 1 jersey. Now, if you look at Ole Miss players getting an invite to the combine, one player that was conspicuously absent was Trinidad Chambliss, but Deshaun Stribling, Trey Wallace, Diego Pounds, those players had a big impact in Ole Miss's season. I think a couple other players are getting added as well. I just forgot it at the moment, but 5 players got invited to compete for the NFL Combine in Indianapolis. Did not have Trinidad Chambliss on that list. One thing that's interesting to me is that Jaden Williams did not get an invite. Jaden Williams was a really good offensive lineman for Ole Miss and probably deserved an invite. He did not get one. That's weird to me. Somebody that has been good, somebody that had a little bit of trouble staying healthy from time to time, made it through last season as the left tackle, the person that handled Trinidad's blindside, I do believe. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. But 5 players from Ole Miss, not a bunch, because players like Santarin Perkins, players that were eligible for the draft, they came back to Ole Miss. The players that usually ran away from Ole Miss over the last 5 years, and I'm not blaming this on Lane or anything like that. I don't hear that. But the players that left, you stay for 3 years and then you were gone over the last 5 years. There seems to be at least an ability to hold on to players right now this year that they didn't have before. And it could have been the way the Lane thing went down, I guess. It could have been the fact that these players are making really good money at Ole Miss. But the point is, Ole Miss was able to keep their roster even from the NFL. It wasn't just LSU or the transfer portal. It was the NFL as far as protecting what's yours. And they were able to do that, add some players in the transfer portal they have a chance to be really good in that area, improving the defense, improving the offense. Listen, it's just like we said in the intro. If Trinidad Chambliss comes back, this is a national championship contender at Ole Miss with the best running back, the best quarterback, and the best kicker in college football. The Sugar Bowl defensive MVP and William Eccles on the defensive line, with players that were brought in the transfer portal to replace Xavier Harris, who's going to the NFL Combine, with Blake Purchase, a surprising player that could be really good on the end, with Luke Farrelly and Taj Butler and those guys, the linebacker from Baylor that came in to take over that position. They found starters at all three levels at a consistent level on defense. And they have some dudes on offense. This team, talent-wise, is probably more talented than the 2025 team that was 27 seconds or something like that away from a national championship game appearance. With Trinidad Chambliss, who is one of the most dynamic player, who would have been in New York if he was promoted at all in the month of November. Absolutely would have been in New York. Legitimate Heisman candidate right now, if the eligibility clock moves on. So that's why what we talked about in the first segment is so important and what people need to understand of what's going on. In the second segment, we told you exactly what you can expect today. Probably nothing except hearing Trinidad's side of the story. Then it's going to take 4 or 5 days while the judge ponders what is going on. And Ole Miss had 5 players in the NFL draft. They did a fantastic job of protecting against the transfer portal and the NFL for a chance for a run. And now they have a team that is more talented than what they had in 2025. Now, you need some breaks. We saw the most talented team in Ole Miss history not make the playoffs in 2024. We saw a team less talented than that be 19 seconds away from the national championship game. You need some breaks. You have to make plays when they are required of you. But it is all there for Ole Miss, and it all starts today with the eligibility hearing for Trinidad Chambliss. Thanks for tuning in to today's Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're going to continue to talk Trinidad Chambliss until a judge is given, ruling is given, and then we're going to talk about what that means, essentially. We're on all the social episodes, social channels, so check that out as well. So make sure you subscribe and follow the show so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemmiss.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel. On audio, make sure your second listen is Locked On College Football. Hotty toddy, everybody. The biggest decision in this 2026 football team may be just days away. So it should be interesting to see exactly which direction it goes. Hotty toddy, everybody.